Hello there, welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to discuss an important concept that will help us in our study of comparative religion, theology, and philosophy. This concept is called pantheism, so let's discuss it. And for the sake of clarity and understanding, we will answer three important questions about this concept. Number 1, what is meant by pantheism? No. 2, what are some examples of pantheism? And number 3, what are some criticisms against pantheism? So let's discuss these points one by one. First, what is meant by pantheism? The term pantheism comes from the Greek word pan, which means all, and theism, which means belief in God or faith in God. Therefore, pantheism literally means a belief in all or a belief in everything. Pantheism is a metaphysical view that identifies God with the universe, or in other words, God is identified with the totality of existence. In other words, God is the universe and the universe is God. In the monotheistic religions such as Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, it is believed that God is one. That is, there is only one God, and He is the creator of the universe, the Lord of the worlds, as it is mentioned in the Bible, in the Quran, and in other holy books. However, in pantheism, it is believed that God is not separate from the universe, but rather He is identical to the universe itself. A pantheist believes that God is the universe and that the universe is God. Therefore, everything that exists is God and everything that exists has a divine nature. Pantheism is a type of monism, that is, it believes in the unity of reality. For example, it believes that matter is the only substance in reality, or that mind is the only substance in reality. However, pantheism believes that both matter and mind are ultimately dependent on the universe and therefore they are not real substances. In reality, only the universe is real. Now, some people might say that if God is the universe, then how can He be personal? How can He have attributes like knowledge, power, life, and so on? Well, the answer to that is that pantheists believe that these divine attributes are identical to the laws of nature. For example, the law of gravity is identical to God's power, and the law of cause and effect is identical to God's justice. Pantheists believe that the universe is rational and that its rationality is identical to God's rationality. They also believe that the universe is moral and that its morality is identical to God's morality. In summary, pantheism is the view that God is identical to the universe and that the universe is God. It is a monistic view that believes in the ultimate unity of reality. It identifies the divine attributes with the laws of nature and it believes that the universe is rational and moral. Second, what are some examples of pantheism? Nature. There are many examples of pantheism throughout history and across cultures. Let's discuss three of them. 1. Ancient Greek philosophers such as Anaximander and Anaximenes believed that the universe was divine and that everything was part of a divine plan. For example, Anaximander believed that the ultimate reality was an infinite, boundless substance called apeiron. And he believed that the world came into being when this substance began to contract and expand. Anaximenes believed that the universe was a living, breathing entity that was constantly changing and evolving. 2. Some indigenous cultures, such as the Native Americans, had a pantheistic worldview that saw all of nature as sacred and interconnected. For example, the Cherokee people believed that all living things were related and that humans had a duty to live in harmony with nature. The Lakota people believed that the earth was a living being and that it provided for the needs of its children. 3. In more recent times, some thinkers such as Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau have advocated for a pantheistic worldview. For example, Emerson believed that God is the immanent reality that is present in all things and that we can experience this divinity through our connection with nature. Thoreau believed that the universe is a manifestation of divine spirit and that we can find this spirit by living simply and in tune with nature. These are just a few examples of pantheism throughout history. Pantheism is a diverse and complex worldview that has taken many different forms. But in general, it is a philosophy that sees the divine as immanent in the universe and as the source of all things. Third, what are some criticisms against pantheism? Pantheism, while an interesting concept, has faced several criticisms over the years. Here are 5 of the most common criticisms. 1. Atheists often criticize pantheism for being too vague and ambiguous. For example, what exactly do you mean when you say that God is the universe? What does it mean for something to be divine? And how do we know that the universe has a divine nature? These are some of the questions that atheists raise and say that pantheists cannot answer adequately. Atheists argue that pantheism is just another form of atheism because it denies the existence of a personal God who is separate from the universe. No. 2. Another criticism that is raised against pantheism is that it is too abstract and speculative. For example, pantheists often use terms such as immanence and transcendence, but these terms are not clearly defined and they lead to confusion rather than clarity. Atheists argue that pantheism is not a satisfying explanation for the world because it does not provide us with any concrete knowledge about the nature of reality. No. 3. Many theists also criticize pantheism for being too similar to other non-theistic views such as materialism and idealism. For example, pantheists often identify the divine with matter or with mind, but this is very similar to the materialist and idealist view that there is no God at all. Theists argue that pantheism is not a genuine form of theism because it is too close to non-theistic views. No. 4. Some people also criticize pantheism for being too static and unchanging. For example, if the universe is God, then how can anything change or evolve? How can new things come into being, and how can things be destroyed? These are some of the questions that critics raise. They argue that pantheism cannot account for the dynamism and creativity of the universe. And finally, no. 5. One of the most common criticisms of pantheism is that it is too anthropocentric. That is, it puts humans at the center of the universe and ignores the rest of creation. For example, if the universe is God, then what is the significance of other creatures? Do they also have a divine nature, or are they just part of the divine plan? Critics argue that pantheism does not do justice to the diversity and richness of the natural world. These are some of the criticisms that have been raised against pantheism. However, pantheism remains an influential and important concept in the study of religion and theology. By understanding pantheism, we can better understand the diversity of human thought and the many ways that people have sought to understand the nature of reality and their place in it. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and share it with your friends and family. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel to receive notifications of new videos. We wish you all the best and we hope that you have a wonderful day.